Installation procedure for the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version.
Single enclosure. Note: recommendations for how purge or pressurization systems should be connected are as follows. Installation locations should be selected for best ease of viewing of system pressure gauges and/or visual alarms. 2. All tubing, piping, and fittings that are selected should be suitable for the location where they will be installed, used, and protected from damage. 3. No valves shall be installed between the purge pressurization system and enclosure. Always refer to appropriate ATEX, CEC, IECEX, NEC/NFPA, and UL standards for proper installation and required tests for certification of any complete purge pressurization system installed on enclosure. Multiple enclosures in series. Note: recommendations for how purge or pressurization systems should be connected in multiple enclosure installations include the single enclosure recommendations plus the following. 1. Enclosures in series should be connected from smallest to largest enclosure. 2. Connections between enclosures should be appropriately sized to allow proper operation of purge pressurization system and proper purge gas flow through enclosures. 3. Conduit and wireways can be used as protected enclosures or as connections between enclosures. The volumes of these conduit and wireways should be included in the overall volume to be diluted before power can be applied. The first enclosure in series should have purge gas supply to enclosures. The last enclosure in series should have purge gas exhaust from enclosures and pressure reference point for indication and/or alarm. Hazardous area installation. Flammable gases or vapors lighter than air. Note: recommendations for installation in hazardous areas with flammable gases or vapors that are lighter than air are as follows. 1. The purge gas inlet supply connection should enter the enclosure near the bottom corner of the enclosure. 2. The enclosure exhaust vent should be installed near an extreme opposite top corner of the enclosure. Flammable gases or vapors heavier than air. Note: recommendations for installation in hazardous areas with flammable gases or vapors that are heavier than air are as follows. 1. The purge gas inlet supply connection should enter the enclosure near the top corner of the enclosure. 2. The enclosure exhaust vent should be installed near an extreme opposite bottom corner of the enclosure.
The Purge Solutions TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version can monitor purge pressure and exhaust flow for up to 3 enclosures via 2 compression fittings for each enclosure. There are 2 pressure sensor connections for each enclosure. Ports are numbered from the bottom up. Connections for monitoring enclosure 1 are exhaust flow on port 1 and pressure on port 2. For monitoring enclosure 2, connections are exhaust flow on port 3 and pressure on port 4. Finally, connections for monitoring enclosure 3 are exhaust flow on port 5 and pressure on port 6. Each TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version is configured per number of enclosures it will be monitoring.
This enclosure shows its exhaust with option 1 configuration. This enclosure shows its exhaust with option 2 configuration. This enclosure shows its exhaust with option 3 configuration.
For overall unit dimensions, hole sizes, and locations required to mount and interface the unit to an enclosure, refer to Purge Solutions TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP Version User's Manual. For the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP Version mounting hole pattern, use drawing number DO-30045. For the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP Version 115-volt AC wiring diagram, use drawing number DO-30038. For the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP Version 230-volt AC wiring diagram, use drawing number DO-30039. For the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP Version installation flow diagrams, use drawing numbers DO-30015-1 through 4. The following procedure should be performed when installing the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Review all of the material in the manual prior to installing and interfacing the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version to the enclosures it will be monitoring. If you have any questions, please contact your local Purge Solutions representative or the factory. For installing the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version to enclosures and for attaching and routing wires for power and alarm signals, refer to Installation Flow Diagrams drawings, Purge Exhaust Vent Assembly and Configuration drawings, Installation General Assembly drawing, and Wiring Diagrams drawings. This installation shows mounting the unit next to the left side of the enclosure. Alternatively, the unit can be mounted on the right, top, or bottom side of the enclosure. Step 1. Make sure the area surrounding the enclosure in which the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version will be installed is known to be non-hazardous. Step 2. Make sure that all power is removed from the electrical equipment located in the enclosures where the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version will be installed. Step 3. After it has been assured that the area surrounding the enclosure is known to be non-hazardous, open the enclosure door. Step 4. Select a mounting location for the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version as near the enclosures to be monitored as possible in a location farthest from the protective supply gas inlet. Refer to Installation Flow Diagrams, drawing numbers DO-30015-1 through 4. The chosen location should permit adequate viewing of the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version indicator lights, as well as interfacing enclosure pressure monitoring port and exhaust vent flow. Step 5. Use Installation General Assembly, drawing number DO-30045, to create a mounting hole template. This will help to accurately locate the mounting holes. Use the dimensions from the Installation General Assembly drawings to make a 1-to-1 scale drawing. The required hole locations can then be transferred and/or marked using the centers of the holes as shown on the 1-to-1 drawing. Step 6. Drill or punch all holes per the sizes specified on the Installation General Assembly drawings, number DO-30045. Step 7. Mount TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version to holes just produced using proper sized bolts, flat washers, and lock washers. Step 8. After TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version has been mounted, Install the exhaust vent on the enclosure nearest to TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version for ease of tubing at a location farthest from the protective supply gas inlet. Refer to installation flow diagrams, drawing numbers DO-30015-1 through 4. This step must be repeated for every enclosure being monitored by the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Step 9. After all exhaust vents have been properly installed, run 1/4 inch outer diameter tubing from the exhaust flow port of the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version to the enclosure exhaust vent. This step must be repeated for every enclosure being monitored by the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Step 10. After all tubing has been properly run to all exhaust vents, install a fitting in the enclosure that will accept a 1/4 inch outer diameter tube. This must be run from the enclosure pressure sensor port of the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version to the newly installed enclosure monitoring pressure port. Refer to installation flow diagrams, drawing numbers DO-30015-1 through 4. This step must be repeated for every enclosure being monitored by the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Step 11. Remove cover retaining clip, then unscrew cover off housing. Step 12. Install properly rated cable connection in the 1/2-14 FNPT holes located on the bottom of the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Plug any 1/2-14 FNPT holes not used with properly certified plugs rated for hazardous area location. For ease of illustration, poured seals, conduit, cable glands, cable and hole plugs are not shown during the installation process. Warning: poured seals, conduit, cable glands, cable and hole plugs should not be installed in a hazardous area classification for which they are not rated. Note: when selecting enclosures for Division 1 installations in which TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version will be installed, ensure that there is enough space available for poured seals and associated conduit for power and alarm wire to and from TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing. Note: for Division 1 installations, conduit must be sealed within 18 inches of TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing. All cable entries in TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing are 1/2-14 NPT. Note: when selecting enclosures for Zone 1 installations in which TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version will be installed, ensure that there is enough space available for cable glands and associated cable bringing power and alarm wire to and from TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing. Note: for Zone 1 installation, cable must be sealed at TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing. All cable entries in TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing are 1/2-14 NPT. Connect up to 10 gauge 3-conductor cable for power to the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Use wiring diagram drawing number DO-30038 for 115 volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations and DO-30039 for 230 volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations. Connect up to 10-gauge 3-conductor cable for power from the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version to the electrical equipment in the enclosure to be monitored and controlled by the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Use wiring diagram drawing number DO-30038 for 115-volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations and DO-30039 for 230-volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations. If applicable, connect up to 10-gauge 3-conductor cable for automatic leakage compensation purge gas inlet kit solenoid valve to the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Use wiring diagram drawing number DO-30038 for 115-volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations and DO-30039 for 230-volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations. Connect up to 20-gauge 2-conductor wire for alarm signals from the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version. Use wiring diagram drawing number DO-30038 for 115-volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations and DO-30039 for 230-volt AC unit wire terminal strip locations. Caution: this apparatus must be earth grounded. Refer to Installation Section 4, Figure 1 in the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version's User's Manual for proper ground connection detail. Step 13. After routing and terminating the wires into the terminal strips in the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version, secure these wires using proper lead dress. Step 14. After wires have been properly dressed, set automatic dilution time cycle to ensure that at least 5 times the volume of free space in the enclosure is exchanged before power is automatically applied to the electrical equipment. Refer to TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version User's Manual Startup Procedure for proper steps to set dilution time cycle. Note: the number of exchanged volumes and times may be higher in some situations. Step 15. After automatic time delay has been set, properly screw cover back onto TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing. Step 16. After cover has been properly screwed back onto the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version housing, install the cover retaining clip. Step 17. After properly closing and latching the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version, installation is complete and the unit is ready to monitor the purged pressurized enclosures. Warning: failure to heed the following information may lead to injury of personnel or equipment damage. Before installing the TRYCLOPS X Purge Controller XP version, electrical power wiring must be checked for correct size and routing. Refer to all ATEX, CEC, IECEX, NEC/NFPA, or UL certificates for any special conditions of use. If an X appears after the certificate number, it indicates that the equipment or protective system is subject to special conditions for safe use specified in the schedule of the certificate.